There's a certain moment when all the noise in the news finally hits home, and you realize this isn't just another headline. It's about your next trip to the grocery store, your pantry, and your family's comfort. Right now, supply chain experts are raising alarms about a new wave of disruptions, expected just after May 5th, 2025. And if this sounds dramatic, remember what happened back in 2020 when shelves cleared out in less than 3 days. People lined up in the cold, hoping for a single bag of flour or a few gallons of water, while others were left wandering empty aisles in disbelief. No one wants to repeat that. That's why I'm making this video. Not to stoke fear, but to help you get prepared in a smart, level-headed way. I've spent days digging into the latest reports, talking with insiders, and watching trends that don't make it to the front page. We're not talking about just panic buying. We're talking about having a plan, so when everyone else is suddenly scrambling, you can stay calm and keep your family comfortable. Because these aren't just any groceries. They're the first things to disappear when the trucks stop rolling and the store lights flicker off. We're going to cover 6 specific survival grocery products that, according to supply chain insiders and real-world disaster data, are likely to vanish first. Not random stuff. Real essentials that get wiped out in hours whenever there's a serious disruption. And yes, you can still get them now if you act before everyone else catches on. I'm not saying go clear out the shelves or start hoarding like it's the end of the world. This is about taking a little action, one shopping trip at a time, and building a cushion so you don't have to fight over the last can of food. So, if you're still with me, take a second to hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into what you absolutely need to buy before May 5th rolls around. Because if there's anything I learned from the chaos a few years ago, it's that waiting for official warnings is always too late. The time to prepare is now, when you still have choices, not when you're standing in an empty aisle, wondering what went wrong. Most people think they're covered on water just because they have a case or two of bottled water stacked in the garage. But here's what nobody really tells you. Those bottles have a pretty short shelf life, and the plastic breaks down way faster than you'd expect, especially if it gets hot. I learned this the hard way when I cracked open some water I'd stored for emergencies, and it tasted like something out of a swimming pool. Turns out, even sealed plastic bottles can leach chemicals if you leave them for too long, or if they're stored somewhere that heats up. Now, picture what happened in Texas during the power grid failure. Folks went from having plenty of water to literally melting snow in their bathtubs just to flush the toilet. Some were trading bourbon for jugs of water by the third day. It sounds wild, but when you're out, you're out. And help doesn't always come as fast as you think. FEMA and the Red Cross both recommend having at least a gallon of water per person, per day, for a minimum of 3 days. That's just to get by. But when you do the math for a family of 4, for just a month, you're talking about 120 gallons. I tracked my family's use for a week and was honestly shocked by how fast we went through it. That's where long shelf life water comes in. Not just any bottled stuff. The brands you want to look for are Aqua Blocks and Blue Can. These come in special containers that keep water safe and pure for up to 30 years, using the same kind of tech that NASA relies on. No worrying about plastic taste, no worrying about replacing cases every year. And lately, I've noticed even these are starting to show up as limited stock online. Some companies are already putting in purchase limits because demand is skyrocketing. Pro tip, don't put your whole supply in one place. Spread it around, under beds, in closets, anywhere cool and dark. If something happens and part of your house is cut off, you'll still have access to water somewhere else. I learned that lesson the hard way when a basement flood took out half of my stored supplies. And remember, in every crisis I've tracked, water runs out before almost anything else. It's not dramatic, it's just the reality of how fragile our systems really are. Get ahead of it now, and you'll be in a much better position, no matter what comes next. It's easy to overlook protein when you're filling up your pantry, but here's the truth. When supply chains get shaky, protein is the first thing that vanishes. I've seen it over and over, and it happened again during those crazy weeks back in 2020. Meat departments wiped clean and folks grabbing whatever was left. My neighbor thought he could wait out the rush, and ended up feeding his kids nothing but peanut butter sandwiches for days. Nobody wants to be in that position. What a lot of people miss is that your body actually needs even more protein when you're under stress. A recent Stanford study found that during high stress periods, your protein requirements can jump by 25%. That means what felt like enough in normal times probably won't cut it in an emergency. I learned that the hard way during a winter storm. 3 days in, I was eating normal meals, but still felt tired and cranky, all because I was running short on protein. Now, forget the old idea that canned tuna is your go-to prep. Sure, it's fine in a pinch, but there are smarter choices. Canned chicken is at the top of my list. It's got more protein per dollar than tuna, and you can eat it straight out of the can if the power's out. Shelf-stable tofu is another one people are finally waking up to. It lasts for months, doesn't need a fridge, and honestly, the flavor options now are way better than you'd expect. For folks with food allergies or special diets, dehydrated bean flakes are a game changer. One bag can give you weeks' worth of complete protein, and they cook up fast, even with just boiling water. Don't sleep on emergency-grade whey protein either. It's not just for gym fanatics. The latest stuff has a multi-year shelf life and costs less per serving than most canned meat. I keep tubs of it on hand and mix it into everything from oatmeal to pancake mix, so nobody even notices. But we all get that extra boost when it counts. The important thing is to rotate what you store. Use the oldest first and replenish as you go. That way, nothing goes to waste, and you always have a reliable stash. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's that grocery stores run on razor-thin margins. If deliveries stop for even a few days, all the good protein gets snapped up fast. Don't wait until that happens. Start building your supply now, and your future self will be grateful you did. If there's one thing most people overlook when prepping, it's cooking oil. But the moment there's a shortage, you'll notice just how many of your go-to meals depend on it. During the last major supply crunch, cooking oils were some of the first things to disappear, and I remember walking into a grocery store to see the entire oil section picked clean. When you run out, even basic cooking gets tough, and suddenly those bags of rice or pasta in your pantry aren't nearly as useful. Here's what surprised me. Most American households only keep about 9 days' worth of cooking oil on hand. That's it. And with recent droughts hitting olive and avocado crops, and producers starting to limit shipments to stores, it's pretty clear that the next big disruption is going to hit oils hard. I talked to a grocery manager last week who admitted they're already getting only half of what they order. So, if you're relying on a single giant jug of vegetable oil, it might be time to rethink your plan. The biggest mistake I see is people stocking up on extra virgin olive oil for emergencies. Don't do it. Olive oil goes rancid way faster than you'd think, especially if you open it and then let it sit for months. Instead, look for refined coconut oil, which can last up to 5 years if you store it right, or avocado oil, which has a super high smoke point and works for just about any kind of cooking. Both of these also have side benefits. Coconut oil is great for treating small cuts, and both oils work as emergency fire starters if you ever need to light something without matches. For storage, keep your oil in smaller containers rather than one massive jug. That way, you only expose a little at a time to air and light, which helps it last longer. I mark the date on each bottle and always use the oldest first, so nothing gets wasted. And always stash your oils in a cool, dark place, never near the stove or windows, where heat and sunlight can break them down even faster. A lot of people forget this step, but it can make all the difference when everyone else is fighting over the last bottle in the store. With the right oils and a little planning, you'll keep your meals on track even when supplies are tight, and you might even help out a neighbor who's suddenly realizing they can't fry an egg. A lot of folks think stocking up on grains just means grabbing bags of rice or pasta, but there's a whole world of better options out there, ones that last longer, cook faster, and give you way more nutrition for your buck. The last time the shelves emptied out, most people reached for what they knew, so the plain white rice and spaghetti were gone in hours. Meanwhile, grains like quinoa, bulgur, millet, and buckwheat just sat there untouched. That's wild, considering these alternatives are actually survival staples in a lot of places around the world. The real advantage with grains like quinoa or bulgur is that they pack a complete protein punch and deliver a bunch of extra vitamins and minerals, stuff you'll be grateful for if you're living on what you've stored. I saw a Cornell University study that found folks eating these alternative grains had better energy and focus during high stress situations than those just living on rice or white bread. When resources get tight and every calorie counts, you want the fuel that's going to keep you sharp and steady. What really opened my eyes was how much faster some of these grains cook. During a power outage, I had to make dinner on a tiny camping stove. My neighbor was still waiting on her rice to finish, while I had a pot of millet ready in less than 10 minutes, using half the water and barely any fuel. In a crisis, that kind of efficiency matters way more than you think. One thing you don't want to skip is proper storage. I learned this lesson the hard way. Plastic bags from the store won't cut it. Grains need to go in airtight containers, away from heat and moisture, or you risk ending up with a mess of bugs or mold just when you need them most. Once I switched to sealed containers, my supplies stayed fresh for years, and it took the stress out of restocking. If you check prices right now, grains like millet and bulgur haven't spiked yet, but I've already heard from distributors that supplies are tightening and ordering limits are coming. This is one of those buy ahead moments. Get what you need before everyone else figures out what's happening, and you'll have real variety and nutrition in your pantry, no matter what the headlines are saying. One thing I see almost everyone overlook is powdered essentials, stuff like milk, eggs, and even butter in shelf-stable form. Most of us don't think about these basics until we suddenly can't get them. But if you've ever been stuck during a blizzard or a blackout, you know the pain of not having real milk for coffee or eggs for breakfast. Last year, I talked to a family who rode out a 3-week flood with nothing but what they had in their pantry. Their biggest regret? Not having more powdered dairy and eggs on hand. They said it would have made all the difference. The reality is, most powdered essentials used to taste a little off, but that's changed. Brands like Augustin Farms and Ova Easy have nailed the taste and texture now. You'd have a tough time telling them apart from the real thing, especially in recipes. I even did a blind taste test with my own family, and no one guessed they were eating powdered eggs in their breakfast casserole. Powdered butter is another game changer for baking, and it's shelf-stable for years. Here's where it gets urgent. Powdered milk, eggs, and butter are all at risk of running out fast this time, because the plants that make them are clustered in just a few regions, and any hiccup in shipping or production could mean weeks with empty shelves. One major plant is already scheduling downtime in early May, which means what's left on store shelves now could be it for a while. The last big winter storm in Texas saw powdered milk going for $45 a canister on resale sites. Don't wait for that kind of sticker shock. The smart move is to grab a supply for at least a month per person and start using a little in your regular cooking now, so it's not a weird switch when you need it. Mix powdered milk into your smoothies, use powdered eggs in baked goods, and try out the butter powder in recipes. Not only will you be more prepared, but you'll keep your nutrition on track during a crisis. The families who do this are way more likely to stay healthy if things drag on. Bottom line, a few containers of powdered essentials can mean the difference between just scraping by and actually enjoying meals if the stores go empty. Here's something I wish someone had told me years ago. Ready-to-eat meals aren't just a nice to have. They're a real lifeline when things get messy. Last winter, a freak ice storm hit my sister's town, and her power was out for nearly a week. All she had were a handful of quick meals, stuff like shelf-stable chili, instant rice bowls, and a few backpacking pouches. That little stash made all the difference, because when the roads were iced over and grocery stores were closed, there wasn't any other option. No electricity, no stove, no way to get more supplies. Those meals kept her family calm, fed, and out of danger. In the past year, I've seen more and more stores putting strict limits on how much of these shelf-stable meals you can buy at once, and some shelves are already running bare. Emergency meal kits aren't just for preppers anymore. They're selling out fast to regular folks who know what happened last time. And here's the real kicker. Today's ready-to-eat options actually taste good. Forget those old, bland rations. Companies like Mountain House and ReadyWise now make meals you'd happily serve at the dinner table, with options for every diet: gluten-free, keto, vegetarian, you name it. Some even require nothing but cold water, so you're covered even if the power's down. What most people overlook is the importance of variety. It might sound silly, but eating the same thing every day will wear down your mood and energy quicker than you'd think. There's actually research from Johns Hopkins showing that food monotony leads to decision fatigue and poor problem solving. Mixing in some comfort food, like instant mashed potatoes, protein bars, or even a few favorite treats, goes a long way for mental health when life is upside down. If you haven't already, start building up a 2-week stash of diverse, ready-to-eat meals. Add a few each trip, and keep an eye out for items with a long shelf life and good nutritional balance. If you need specialty diet foods, don't wait. Those are the first to vanish. And if you have a family, get everyone used to the taste now. When things go sideways, you'll be glad you did. If there's one thing I hope you take away from all this, it's that being prepared isn't about panic or hoarding. It's about making smart, steady choices while you still have time and options. I've seen what happens when people wait until the last minute. Shelves empty out, tempers flare, and even simple ingredients suddenly become worth their weight in gold. But the families who took a few extra steps ahead of time, they stayed comfortable, fed, and in control while everyone else scrambled. Think about what's happened just in the last few years. Power outages, wild weather, and supply disruptions aren't just some distant risk. They're part of life now. The biggest mistake is assuming someone else will bail you out, or that stores will always have what you need. There's no shame in quietly building a buffer for yourself and your loved ones. You're not making things worse for anyone else by picking up an extra item or two each week. You're actually helping your community by not adding to the last-minute rush. So here's what I recommend. Take a look at the 6 categories we've talked about: long shelf-life water, reliable protein, cooking oils, staple grains, powdered essentials, and ready-to-eat meals. Pick one to start with this week, then add to your supply gradually. Use and rotate your stock so nothing goes to waste. It's not about having a basement full of supplies you'll never touch. It's about making sure your everyday needs are always covered, no matter what's happening in the world. If you found this advice helpful, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe for more practical tips, and share your own preparation wins or lessons in the comments. There's a whole community here learning from each other, and your experience might just be what helps someone else feel a little more ready. Start now, stay calm, and remember, taking action today is the surest way to keep control and peace of mind, no matter what comes next.